Hello, everybody. I'm David Bibby, as you just heard. I own Red Claw Gaming in Edmonton, Alberta. I've owned that for 10 years now. Took it from about 1,800 square feet to about 4,000 square feet now. And why I know stuff about managing people is I was 30 years in the military and worked my way up to the ranks. So funny enough, we actually do a little bit of that in my previous job. So this is what we're going to talk about, is how to be a good boss to amazing employees. Everybody's like, wow, all I have to do is just don't do the stuff my other boss did to me and I should have this thing nailed, right? Well, if it was that easy, there wouldn't be any bad bosses. So we're going to get into how to actually go through it and some of the ideas you can use. This works really well for when you're starting out. It also works really well when you're a game store that suddenly moves from you and your friend or perhaps your other partner, and now you're actually looking to bring people in. So there's parts for it all in there. So we'll carry on with that. So first one, pick the right leadership style. We're going to get into a little bit more of actually leadership types, but the style is how you operate and interact with your staff. So you can start with a small team atmosphere. Basically everybody feels responsible and everybody's pulling together. That works to about 5 people. Then after about 5, it's a little easier for someone to coast. So it starts moving away from that till you start getting into 10, which is about as much as you can do and have direct sort of leadership over somebody. Anything past 10, you're going to actually be using managers, you're going to be using other things. It doesn't mean you change how you do it. It just means now instead of doing it to your staff below them, you're going to be doing that with your manager. So you just have to be aware on how you move up. You're going to have less and less influence to the very small person on the ground and how that operates in between. So it's one of the things we'll talk about. So the first thing we can talk about is whether or not you're going to use transactional or transformational leadership. Transactional is you're doing something because you're going to get punished or you're going to get a reward. So it's a very common one that we first use. It's the easiest of the two for sure. It can lead to checklists. This is something that you generally will have to do with an employee that's new to the game, perhaps younger, just not sure where they are. Basically, they lack the self-discipline to do what they need to do. You can tell this by the one that walks by the garbage can. All right? That one needs a little bit more help, all right? The people that are doing it right, because it's the right thing to do, have moved past that. So it leads to checklists. If you start using them, they have a point. One of the best ways to use them is when you have procedures that have to be done certain way. Such as when you're taking in magic cards. If you pay $5 for 1,000 bulk cards, $7 for store credit, and you're using a tape measure, anyone want to know 31 centimeters equals 1,000 cards? That's a procedure that can be a checklist and helps your employees. It doesn't restrict how they do things. If you start putting everything as a checklist, then that's all they're going to do. So you better write everything down, and that is going to be one heck of a checklist. All right? Transformational, you're doing something because it's need to be done or it's the right thing to do. That's that buy-in that we talk about. All right? So when we see about the old term drinking the Kool-Aid or they believe in you, that's really what you're trying to do with transactional leadership. All right? It requires a lot more time and effort. You're really having to make them feel invested in the store. So you have to make them feel as an individual that they count, and they have to feel that you're worth it. So that's another tricky part, because you can't just I always empower my employees. That's great. What are you doing to earn their respect and to prove that you're worth what they're doing? We all hear about, today's day and age, people are bouncing all over the place. They're looking for the paycheck. Paycheck tends to be the easiest way you think you can get the buy-in. It's actually not, right? That's a reward. You're using transactional. So they're just there because you gave them the money. I don't know about you guys, but I can't pay my employees what they're actually worth. All right, I'm a game store. All right, I am not retiring to Tahiti anytime soon. Neither are my employees, and I am the lowest paid employee that I have. So I already have a pension. All right, so that's one of those key things to keep in mind. So how are you going to do that and actually get that time and effort so they believe in you? Because once your employees believe in you, then they want to do the things that make you better. whether you told them to or not. Matter of fact, most of the time you're not going to tell them to do it. You'll come in and they've done good work and you're like, wow. A lot of times you're gonna be like, I wouldn't have thought of that. So now you're actually a stronger, better store for it that's following that direction. And now you're building your store and getting people to go there. It's starting to shift to more of a European style model where most people are not necessarily looking for the highest paycheck, but they're looking for somewhere where they want to be. If you can do that, then you're starting to move into that transformational style leadership, and that's when your employees really become valuable. All right? Creates that sense of team. Everybody's got a piece, everybody's got a part. All right? Don't get me wrong, that does not mean no one is in charge. That is actually going to be one of those crucial things we're going to talk about coming up. Being in charge and setting those expectations is actually one of the things you do to create the team. It's not that they can do whatever they want. That is very much a false thing. So, create the environment. For your employees to want to be there and to buy in, you have to create that environment that allows them to flourish in that. So, very first thing, clearly set those expectations. When you have to put them in place after it's already occurred, you're basically going to have to slap them down, and that's going to be feel bads. If you set high expectations at the very start of what you're doing, people want to meet them. All right? That is what it means to be part of this team. All right? Putting them in place later on is really hard, and it's going to be 6 months of some very angsty teamwork there. So the other thing, everybody must meet them. That's all your employees, that's your manager, and more importantly, it's you. That whole setting the example. So it's easy for us as bosses to kind of like, well, I do it this way because. If you're doing it that way because, then maybe everybody should do it that way because. If not, rethink what you're doing, right? Use your employees to challenge you and keep you on track too. Because as a boss, when you're the one that owns the whole darn thing, it's so easy to just like, whatevs, all right? Once your employees buy into it, they'll call you out on it and helps keep you in check as well. And then everybody feels a piece of it. But if you let one of the people get away with it, if you want to hear, well, Phil doesn't have to do it. If you want to hear that a lot, just don't meet it. All right? As a boss, you should take part of the routine as much as possible. And that can mean a variety of things. I still work the front till. It allows me to see how things are going on. I'll pull the occasional cleaning shift when someone has to sub out to it. In bigger companies, it might just simply mean you're there when these things are occurring and you're paying more attention to what your employees are doing than perhaps going to the back and just doing paperwork. This allows you to evaluate, especially if you've grown or you've added stuff, is what you're asking of your employees still something they can actually do? Or is it realistic? Or now are you expecting them to run full tilt the whole time and like they're having to work into their breaks and everything else? Or are they actually working? You get to see those types of things. Because remember, when you're actually doing part of it, the whole job of the back of your store is to enable the front of the store to do its business. So all of your procedures, everything you come up with needs to support the people that are selling the product. Because that's how you make your money. So if you're not actively creating things that make making money better or easier, then what are you really doing? All right? Are you making things easier for you in the back? And you're just paying yourself. So you're actually taking money away from the store. Oh, okay. That makes sense, right? So turn it the other way around. Make sure your procedures are doing that. And make sure that it's understood. For instance, customer's always right. This is my favorite new saying. Does everybody believe in that?
Customers are always right in the matter of taste. So if you hate blue and they love blue, sell them blue.
Right. But I've got a question for you. Which customer? Is it the customer? Is it the customer standing in front of you at the till? Is it the customer asking for help in a paint line? Is it the online customer that's already paid for the product that is now in the hands of the guy in front of you at the till? Is it the one on the phone? Which customer comes first? Is this what you told your employees, the customer always comes first? How helpful was that? I'm not giving you the answer on that one. That is up to you on how you do it, all right? But it is how you need to look at when you're giving your employees these words of advice, such as the customer always comes first. If that's all you said, then you're not helping your employees with that particular gem of knowledge. So it's an example of how you can evaluate that. So define it for them. How do you see those interactions? Don't put those in your employee book. Human interactions are the worst things to put in employee handbooks on how to handle it, because every one of you is a different human and will interact differently. So books should be procedures. If you can turn humans into procedures, you're better than I am. All right? Especially in a game store when you're supposed to create that atmosphere where everybody can be their thing, right? Well, it's not a procedure then. Praise success, correct mistakes. Try and do one in public, the other one in private. All right? No one wants to hear they suck or they screwed up, but they need to. It goes right back to setting the expectations. If they're not living up to it, you need to correct that. If it's something huge or a safety issue, you might want to have to do that in public so that it doesn't occur again and someone's not put at risk. But that's about the only one that really should be done in public. Everything else in private. Caveat, make sure you actually know what occurred and what you're talking about. You need to fully investigate what the issue was so that you can deal with it appropriately. If you just react right away, you probably don't have the full story, which is why doing it in private is really kind of nice, because it forces you to pick a time where you can actually pull them into the back, someone's still at the till or manning the door, right? And you actually can deal with this. So take the time to figure out what the hell went on. If you have to do it the next day because you're a little red in the face and you're probably going to say stuff you regret, do it the next day. You're the person that's setting this example and is supposed to be the bigger person always. Right? So if it takes you a day, it takes you a day. Always try and include your staff on decision making as much as possible. And again, this is really when you set that expectation of how you're developing your leadership on how involved they are and who's involved at what meeting. All right, so this is where perhaps your managers or your shift leads are helping with that, and then they will then further down the line be doing the same thing with their shift. So it can happen at all levels, but don't think as the boss that you're going to be doing it all the time. Like we're at 9, which is right about that maximum where I can actually have those individual dealings, and I kind of enjoy it. But as soon as you get to about 12, there's going to be people you don't, like you see what, once a week maybe? Like how much are you really developing that one individual as you? Not so much. That's what your leaders are for. That's what the managers below you were doing. So those are the ones you're now influencing. Admit your mistakes. For the love of God, if you want to turn on the news, just do it. Any day of the week, you'll see a whole bunch of things that are happening because no one's accountable. Has anybody got 25 employees right now? Okay, you do. 25?
34.
Excellent. So there's 3 people in your store that will not know you made the mistake. The other 31 know when you made a mistake. So admit it. All right, just get up there like, whoa, screwed that one up. It's called accountability. Don't try and deny it. Don't say, well, it's because. It's like if you made a mistake, you made a mistake. All right? Own it, live it, move on. Don't you expect that of your employees? Accountability, is that not something you would look for in an employee? They're probably looking for it in you as well. And like I said, man, they already know. Like, you're the boss. Who forgot that order? Oh, it was GW again. Yeah, you might get away with that once. All right, so admit your mistakes. It'll happen. Come up with it. Oh yeah, like who's missed a pre-release? Like who's missed a new release order or something like that? And now all your staff are standing in front of the customer telling them that like, oh, we didn't get our order. You think every time they say that, they're not going, yeah, he screwed up? You better believe they are. So own it. Make it part of it. Yes, learn from it, move on. Same thing you expect from them. All right? Always I took that from the, that's actually Regulation 21, that's from Alcatraz. I have that up in the staff bathroom. So staff development. This is how you're inclusive, you're adding that buy-in as well. So if you're not willing to put effort into your staff, why are they putting effort into you? So it's a two-way street, all right? The more you invest, the bigger the return. Use their passions, all right? If they really like D&D, put them in charge of the D&D section, all right? That only kind of makes sense, but remember the baseline of your store. Try not to create niches within your store. That's what they do. They only do the RPG section. That's called siloing, and what you're doing is you're gonna create a bunch of like silos, and then there's gonna be this weird stuff in between the silos. And whose job is that? No one's. All right, so it doesn't get done. Or someone will do it, and then the other person thought that was their job. So now like Johnny's in my turf. That goes well. So use their passions, but make sure they understand their primary role is to support the entire store. So that way you're getting the best of both worlds. They're working for everything, but now they're actually able to harness their passion in the area that they're good at. And if they're not good at it, you might have to talk to them. Staff meetings if possible. We use a staff meeting once a month. We have a meal, we go through the whole thing, like we have supper. And it takes us 3 hours, and it's invaluable to basically realign everybody. This means I don't have to really know what's going on in my store. Or it's the one time I will find out what's actually going on in my store. This is where you actually realize, how many D&D nights am I running now? 4 a week? When did that happen? Because you've allowed them to harness that, and now you're having to deconflict maybe a little bit. Maybe now you're having to like give up a Warhammer table because your Pokemon had a 50-man event and you didn't notice. But these are what your people that are good at these things are doing, if you're doing it right, because they care about it. They want their stuff to succeed because they want the store to succeed. So the staff meetings are a really good way to put it together. And this is where, you know, you can really sort out whether or not your Warhammer tournament has priority. Are you going to change things around because you still want to run Pokemon? How are you going to do those things? And because you're talking to everybody at once, this allows everybody to feel heard, and now everybody knows what the plan is. All right, it means you're not going to get that telephone game as you pass through. Staff assessments, do them. Just do them. You need to have that. That tells the expectations, that lets people know where they stand. Write the stuff they need to fix on them. If a staff assessment is nothing but sunshine and roses, hire someone to do your staff assessments. All right, it's not working. All right, the areas for improvement are actually the most important part of an assessment. Who here doesn't know what they do well? Like, all right, but with the stuff you're not good at, you might be glossing over. So that's the important part to it. You need to deal with issues. If you want to have that environment and that workplace where people want to work, you need to deal with issues. Nothing will poison an environment faster than someone getting away from something where the other person can't. All right? Once you have a favorite that you let get away with stuff, your environment is now turning into toxicity. All right? It is the fastest way to do it. All right? Make sure you've got that counseling procedure, so when someone's stepping over the line, you can adjust that, all right? Think of it, when you're counseling someone, it's not a bad thing. You're actually trying to save their job. Because if you're having to start to go through paperwork, that's stuff that's going to lead to them getting fired if they don't fix it. So the whole idea of what you're doing is to save their job. If you approach it from that angle, it gets a lot easier to do, because you are going to have to let them go. Regular communication is basically the key to this. I could probably look at the screen. The assessment, that's where, when you talk about, so these are the levels of counseling. The first one is regular communication. Hey man, I need you to stop doing this. Or, hey, you know, you're really strong in this area. I need you to maybe spend a little bit more time over here. So that daily sort of how you're doing, maybe you see something can be fixed. I need you to empty the garbage a little bit more. Okay. That's fair. That's just regular communication. That's that feedback and give and take on how things go. The next part of it is going to be the assessment, where if you're seeing something over time, this goes into your assessment because they need to fix it. So if you've had to tell them twice or 3 times, now it starts making it into the assessment. This is something I need you to pay attention to. You need to fix this, it's being noted. Oh, now it's me. I thought everybody wasn't taking out the garbage. No, it's really just you. So assessment's especially done in private. Next is verbal counseling. You pull them aside, you take them into the back, you give them a talk. This is what you're doing. This is why it's bad. Here's what you're going to do to fix it. All right? It's verbal, but you're still going to write it down so they can go on their file. Because now you're going to need to start keeping this record. Just because if it keeps going, you're going to have to escalate it to the next level, which is actually the written counseling. All right? So once you start with that, this is now pretty serious, and now you're going to start using, you should be using a bit of SMART to start with, but now it's definitely going to be it. So SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, I always forget the R, someone? Thank you, and time measurement. I even looked at it this morning so I wouldn't forget that. All right? So use the SMART to it, especially the time measurable. You have to give them a deadline, because if you're at the written counseling, you've already talked to them 3 to 4 times at this stage. This is not new to them. If it is new to them, they're not paying attention. That's another issue you should probably deal with. So once you get to that written counseling, make sure it's very clear cut. This is what you're doing. This is what is bad about it. This is what you need to do to fix it. This is the timeline you have, or you're going to be fired. This is my chance to save you. This is it. All right, be very clear on it. Worst thing you can do is try and be nice. All right, just say it the way it is. You don't have to add any flourishes or objectives or anything. Just straight facts, what they need to do. All right, that should not look like a counseling procedure. Although it is very effective, let me tell you, as verbal counseling, that works. That's why I wear my brown pants. I still get nightmares over it. Right? Record everything. Even the little stuff, like if you've had to talk to them during the day and you think as soon as you do it a second time, make a little note of it, because that's what's going to go in their assessments. And you just keep the file. It's should be fairly easy for you to do. It doesn't have to be a form. Grab that extra piece of white paper that came out of the printer when you did your magic order and write on that time, date, name, in the file it goes. All right, it'll help you when you're writing the assessments. It'll help when it comes to later on. Act. If there's one thing you take away from this, is when you have issues with your employees or managers, act. It's not going to go away. It doesn't heal itself. It'll get worse. All right, you need to deal something with that. You need to be proactive on it. Without that action, you're going to see you're not actually in charge of your own store. All right, and quite honestly, if it's not a fit for you, I mean, that's what managers are for. If you're an owner that really can't fire someone, hire a manager that can. You're a command team, or you're the whole setup for a reason. All right. Although as an owner, it's kind of putting that on somebody else. I find kind of crappy. So I feel that's my responsibility. But bottom line, you owe it to your customers and that community you're building as a store to keep your store around. The worst thing you can do is look at all the other good employees you had in the eye and tell them that they no longer have a paycheck because this guy cost you your business, or that person cost you your business. So act. All right, it'll cost you a lot more later on if you don't. Right, what happens if nothing works? I think we all know where this is going. We're gonna not get into too much detail on this because it is gonna vary province to province. Each one has, it's better than in the States where every single state, there's actually some that have the right to fire. All right, so there is things we can do about this, however. It should be the last resort. If you haven't gone through those steps, and don't get me wrong, there's no timelines for those steps. They can happen over the period of a month. They can happen over a period of a week. We are talking about things that you're going to be using that counseling process for. Certain things like theft, bullying, violence, those are just, you're fired. All right, there's no counseling for those. All right, it's not, you're out. So that's what we're talking about. Should be the last resort. The person should have seen this coming for a while, and you have the steps to prove it. You can lay the paper trail out that leads from all the way out. Make sure you have all the paperwork. Try and conduct an exit interview. This depends on how it goes. Having to let the person go after all the counseling and that, usually you can come around to doing an exit interview like, hey, this is just not a good place for you. Like, we've had to have these counseling sessions. I don't think this is really good for your personal mental health. This just isn't a good fit. Try and put it in that regard. That'll save you time and money later, especially if they buy in and you had to let them go. But ultimately, that's what it's leading to. So, legal side of this. Hit a lawyer up and find out what it is now before you're looking at firing someone. Make sure you have that in place. There's something called an employee contract you should have on them. If you join the Canadian Federation for Independent Business, they actually have templates you can use, and they have online legal people that you can access through that. Fun fact, if you join Gamma, you get that for free as well. That's how I know, because I looked it all up afterwards. But it is something worthwhile doing. They'll also help you in creating it and implementing it if you've already got employees. Because there's a couple tricks about just like sitting them down and, oh, by the way, here's your new terms of employment. There's some rules about that one. You can't just kind of change it in between. All right? So use that, know how it goes about it, but ultimately do your risk assessment. You're a smaller store. What are the chances you're actually going to get sued and the lawyer's going to go, if I sue him, he's going to be out of business? All right? You might have to cough up that severance pay. It's still going to be worth it in most cases. Just be prepared for that. But quite honestly, if you're firing the deadbeat, unless his dad's the lawyer, you couldn't get him to take out the garbage. He's going to go seek legal advice, is he? All right? If he was that smart, you'd probably still be paying him. All right, so do a risk assessment on that and know where you're at. Yes, some of them you're like, he's just that kind of greasy. I should probably talk to a lawyer. All right, make sure you're doing that. But don't be scared to act. So ultimately, he'll probably drive you out of business anyway. All right, went through that kind of quick. What happens is I'm nervous, and then I get started, and I'm all excited, so I talk really fast. I talk really fast, and I'm nervous, so basically I talk fast. So we went through all those slides kind of quick. Are there any questions on that? We can get into a little bit of specifics if you'd like.
Something that matters a lot to me is building good culture in a company. I find that very difficult to do. Do you have any advice for the owner, the leader, the manager to build a good company culture with your employees?
How many have you got? How many employees have you got?
We've ebbed and flowed. Used to be 12, come down to about 4 or 5.
Okay, so start being open and communicative to him. So that's where those staff meetings really come into play. So that's your chance to sit down with your employees. I actually put up my sales slides and what our gross profit is. So that way, if they're like, I should get paid more, it's like, that's $40K and I just spent like 30 on magic and your payroll is like 30. So I'm actually in the hole 20 right now. Who wants a raise? Because that happens. Like, sure, you'll make it back when you sell your magic stuff. Murders Karloff. But you're now into that open part, and you're saying what your vision is, so that they're part of your store. They probably want to work in a game store. They didn't just randomly drop in to drop a resume off. You hopefully hired someone who has a passion for the industry in some way. So now you're trying to tell them what your vision is. And the more you do that, the more they feel part of that vision, and that's where that culture is going to start coming from. So the more open you are about it, the more you solicit their advice in their specific areas. If they're good at something, ask them for advice, and then have those expectations that go with it. So they know everybody is responsible for stuff and what that is, and that they're actually going to be heard. Once you create that, it'll start steamrolling on you anyway. All right? It can be as easy as like checklists. I had one of my employees right now that wasn't allowed to empty the garbage until it was 3/4 full in a store. Basically, that took out all their thoughts of initiative right there. And I mean, like, has anybody had a tuna sandwich tossed in the garbage? Do you want that for 3/4 of the thing? That guy was assistant. That's how it went. All right, so that's where you can go with checklists, where if you're trying to enable it. Remember, when you're enabling initiative, you should give some parameters, or you'd be like that game store I just heard about down in Maine, who told his newest employee to go clean the back out. There's a bunch of old stock there. I need some more room. Take care of that. He sells Pokemon. Guess what was also in the back? Old Pokemon that got cleared out. Not at market. Not at MSRP. Blowout. And he comes back like, it's like, well, that's a leadership thing. You did not give parameters. You said, clear the back out. He did. Perfect. Did exactly what you asked him for. The how, you left up to him without any guidance. So again, that's where you can get into it. But once they start feeling those parts, you get much more into it. All right? It also allows you to be more efficient. You can hire 2 employees to do the job of 1 anytime you want. But if you have people that actually buy into what you're doing, they're going to work in those areas, and you're going to find you don't need as many because they actually care what they're doing. They're not just chunk chunk. The clock punchers will do less for you every day of the week. The ones that want to be there and care are the ones that are actually working that whole time they're there. And they're putting that extra effort into it. Make sure they don't work overtime without telling you. All right, that happens to me a fair bit. Like, dude, just tell me when you finished if you had to stay late to do something. I'm okay with it, but I want to pay you for that. And that's been an argument in about 4 staff meetings. So is that not a good problem to have? Your employees are like wanting to do stuff. They just want to finish this off. It's no big deal. No, I want to pay you. Shut up. All right, so that's where it leads to. But if you want to hire more employees, you don't need to do this. All right, then just do transactional, use the checklist. You will work. It's just not the place that I want to work in. I'm assuming you're looking at me because I'm out of time.
No. You
Okay.
Keep on.
Whew.
You can keep on going. It's all good.
Ah!
Anybody else have any other questions? Yeah, sure.
He's doing that so I don't jump off the stage and run over, because that's normally what I do at this.
There you go. So I'm not just games in my store. I'm kind of entertainment. I have puzzles, DVDs, CDs, etc. So I'm trying with my hiring to get a good balance of people who are interested in the different areas. I am realistic in thinking that I'm never going to find somebody who knows every rock band and every card game and, Pokemon.
Yep.
How valuable do you think it is, though, to try to do some cross-training so that if an employee ends up sick for an amount of time, that maybe somebody else can slip in and fill those shoes? Like, I haven't tried it yet because I'm just not sure how it will work.
Vital.
Vital?
They have
Okay.
to, your baseline is they have to be able to sell stuff in your store. So that means all the stuff in your store. The person behind the counter can't just be like, well, I don't know any of this. They have to know enough to talk intelligently. You've heard the 10% product knowledge. 5 is probably good enough for the non-experts. Like, I don't play Magic. I haven't played Magic since 2000, so think of how current I am. All right, I don't play Pokemon. I paint. I do Warhammer. I've never played Bolt Action. I know World War II, go figure. So I can talk enough in each one of these things to help you out. If you're going to ask me what's the best blue-black commander, I'm going to like glaze over and tell you to go to Babelfish or whatever the heck that thing is. All right? But I'm there. I can talk you through what the newest set is. Like, I can do it for kids. I'm like, this one's got cowboys. This one's got vampires. This one's, right? Dinosaur Lost Caverns, great. This one's cutesy. All right? So I can do that, even though if it's not my area of specialty. And all of my employees are expected to be able to do that. At the very least, you should have a rough idea of what's in the board game section, even if you're my tournament organizer for Warhammer. All right? And get back from the till, stop hiding it in the back, talking to your Warhammer buddies. Wardle, again. But yes, no, you need that cross-training. Think of it as your baseline. What do they need to do to work at your store if they didn't have those specialties? They have to sell the stuff in your store to make you money, because that is what I mean by supporting the front. They need to do that. Then they can have their specialties after that. So like, you know what? I can help you baseline. Here's our categories of movies. Here's the ones I like. If you want to know something more in depth, Tuesday nights, Scott is working, and they know way more than I do. That is meant, you've given that person that positive experience. All right? I haven't played D&D since it was advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I still had a basic character sheet. All right? So I do not try and talk to you on what campaign setting would be best for you. All right? I can show you cool dice. Yes, over there.
We're really lucky. We have a staff of about 10 to 15, depending on time of year, and they are fantastic. We have zero complaints. Our staff are great. We had our assistant manager who unfortunately was off for probably 3 months on health issues, and our staff rallied. They supported him. They supported us. It was everything we could have dreamed in that situation. But now he's back, and was slow to integrate back, and they are struggling to. We'll say they're struggling to remember that he is their manager still. So can you give some advice on how to support our staff who did step up and fill his shoes in still recognizing that sometimes they still need to respect him as a manager?
That is tough, because what happens is your staff have taken over that person's job, basically. So 3 people have stepped up, taken over as the manager. Do you really need that manager? Is going to be in their mind, we did just fine without. All right? So the key point to that is, first of all, for your perspective, do you need that manager? If you do, what does that manager do that supports those other employees? So it's like, yeah, I know you guys were able to do it, but it was not fair to you. You guys were like, you stepped up, that was amazing, but that workload is crushing and I don't want to burn you out. So that's what Timmy is now bringing to the table now that he's back, or she. I'm using he just because I was in the Army and that's how it was. But so, please do not think that's anything more than just speech. But yes, so now Timmy's there to help you in these areas. And make sure Timmy knows that. Like, Timmy needs to know that these people stepped up, covered them, the store is still here and thriving because of them. You're having to fit back in, so now you're going to be supporting them, which is ultimately what a boss does, is you support your employees. Make sure that's forefront, and make sure they know what parts that he's taking away from them so that they can focus on the actual job. And compliment them for it. Like, don't do a pizza party, because that's a meme, and my staff remind me all the time about it, but do something nice sort of as part of that, thanking them for it. That doesn't involve necessarily money, that's maybe a little bit of work on your part for it, so that they really feel that that was a good thing. But know that Timmy is there to help them and take some of the workload back off them so that they can focus on their jobs and have more fun doing it instead of being stressed every single day. So frame it like that after you make sure that Timmy is doing that. Because they have to fit back in, and if they're in for that slide because everything's getting done and they're just cherry picking what they're doing, you need to have that conversation first and make sure that Timmy knows what his job is. And is he willing to step up now that he's back? So there can be 2 issues with that. Make sure, do the first one, because that's a management piece, before you go down to the people that are working the cash or the front lines. But yeah, it's a definite, that is a thing, 100%. That will happen. Other questions? Yep.
So I'm a pretty new shop, and I only have about 2 part-time employees. This is actually a me problem. I have a hard time letting go of anything to actually let them do their job. They know about the cleaning routines and a little bit how to do inventory, but I try and stay on top of everything as much as I can. Any advice on how I can be less of a helicopter parent and actually give them their agency?
So first of all, you're not alone. Welcome to the self-help group. All right. That's literally everybody here. This is your baby and your dream. This is everything you've put your heart, soul, and paycheck into this store, And now you're thinking that it's just you, that it's hard to let go. It's not you. Again, start with that empowering. Start small, enable them to do it. Remind yourself over and over again, just because it's not the way you would, it's not the way that you would do it, that it's not wrong. And work your way through that. So give them those little pieces, allow them. Think of them, like I call them my work daughter and like my work kids. Think of them like that. You want to see them succeed. So instead of looking at them taking stuff away from you, is you're helping them grow and succeed in their role that just happens to be in your store. If you can change that mindset, it gets a lot easier, and then you'll feel pride when they do something right, as opposed to, well, it wasn't quite as good as I would do it, right? Because you do have to watch that. So small areas, give the guidance, watch them do it, take pride when they do it right. And it will take a mental effort to go, you know what, they did a pretty good job there. That will change how you see it. But you're gonna have to actually physically, well, mentally go, that was a good job. Without that, you're just gonna roll from one to another. But yes, literally look at them like, you know, you're developing them, you're helping them grow, and that's what'll give you the satisfaction when they succeed, as opposed to feeling you've lost something. So it's the same thing, but that mindset will help you.
One thing that I find it very helpful is you hire someone with higher pay. So now, you hire someone with higher pay. So now because you are paying them, so you will start thinking how I can give my job to them, because you have to make good use of your investment. So now I start thinking every day, like no matter how I give it to the staff finish it before the 8 hours day. So now I'm thinking, oh, how can I make use more? How can I make use more? So it's like going to the gym, you know, you pay for the fee and it's kind of a motivation unless you willing to spend waste it.
I'm not disagreeing, but I would caveat with that. If you start that up front, you're getting the mercenary. So don't hire high in, work up. So baseline, are they worth it for your store? And then reward success. And I had this happen at the last seminar I did, it's like we got this really good guy, but wants more money than we're gonna pay the other one that seems good and we think we can develop them. It's like, well, which one's gonna have more growth? Well, it's the other one. So I don't recommend you hire high. I recommend you allow a growth factor in there, and that'll develop them into your store, as opposed to cherry picking that guy, that person that you think you want with all those skills you think, and now is gonna move over to the next one that pays more. You're looking for that culture that we were talking that wants to be at your store because they believe in you. So not disagreeing, money is a great motivator, but it goes back to transactional as opposed to transformational. And you'll always have more issues with transactional than you will with transformational. And that's coming from someone who's in the Army.
Yeah, we're in the different business, like game store, but we also have a restaurant. And one thing he said, I think you need to let them fail. You know,
Yes.
you have to tell them, but to one point, you cannot be always in their back. So like in the restaurant, you know, it's like, do your mise en place, but then you need to let them fail, so then they understand also. And then you're there, you just back up, but you need to let them grow, like you said.
Enable success, plan for failure, make sure when they fail, it isn't gonna be so catastrophic that you're gonna find them hanging in the closet. All right, so they will make mistakes, they will fail, make sure it is not gonna be so catastrophic to them, because if they believe in you and they think they hurt the store, that is going to crush them. So make sure when you give those parameters, those small pieces, that the failure is not going to destroy them personally.
Yeah, but that's a big failure, but you know, I think
Totally.
that's your point.
Yeah, I know, and I agree. I was just like putting the caveat in there. That's why when the owner that had the Pokemon sold off on him, because that was a $25,000 US hit, right? Everybody's like, so if he wasn't careful about that, that employee would have been shattered. Like, there's no way that person would keep working there, looking the other staff in the eye, having cost the store that much. Not a chance. So keep that in mind when you're assigning those tasks. Make sure it's achievable, and if it fails, it isn't going to put you out of business. All right, because that will kill them, possibly literally. So keep that in mind, because mental health is a huge issue with that. Trust me, if they're that invested in you, they don't want to be the reason you failed.
Let's do one last question, and we'll jump into display merchandising right after. Anybody having a last question? No?
After we left on that high note,
No, it's why not? Can we please give a big round of applause to David? Thank you so much.